Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Kings. My name is Connor Durkin, and alongside me, as always, is Jack Conroy. Jack, how are you today? And are you ready to get into discussing these great matchups for this week?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks. It is round one of the playoffs now for fantasy. So today, these are important players. These are the players, the key players that are going to keep you in playoffs. Because obviously, if you're not choosing the right guys, you're going to fall out of playoffs here. So, as always, doing the matchup thing, and we'll tell you who to play, who not to play. Starting off with the Steelers at the Bills. And guess who's not undefeated anymore? The Steelers. They lost to the Washington football team in a close matchup, and they ended up getting their first loss of the season. I mean, it sucks that they didn't go undefeated, but they do have a loss now. Going into playoffs with them, they got guys all across the board. Big Ben, he's a start for you. And where it really gets complicated with them, we've touched on this before, is there three wide receivers across the board with Deante Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Claypool. Who are the guys who are going to be getting those touchdowns? Because sure, Big Ben could spread out the receptions across them, but at the end of the day, who's going to be getting the touchdowns? Well, last week, Deante Johnson outperformed them with Claypool and Juju falling behind. So it's a really tough call, but I do think Deante Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster are going to take a step forward. Claypool's been there, but they've been doing this weird thing with Claypool lately that his reception level has dipped over the past couple of weeks, and there have been more targets to the tight end, Eric Ebron, who has had his own problems with dropping the football, but it's been a weird thing. They've gone to more of a tight end based offense. I think that will continue, and I think Deante Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster are going to be your guys. And one other note is James Conner will be back. So for you fantasy players there, you'll love to see that.
Yeah, and for the Bills wide receivers, Cole Beasley really has emerged because of John Brown's absence. So as
Mm-hmm.
long as, and I'm pretty sure John Brown's going to be on IR rest of the season. So Cole Beasley in any other matchup, if you were playing anyone else besides the Steelers, I would say to go ahead and start him. But I think because they are playing such a good defense this week, I think there are better options out there for you personally. So that's why I'm going to be, it's more of a boom or bust, I think, for Cole Beasley this week. But as for the running backs, Devin Singletary kind of had a bounce back week with 11 points. Do I think he's worth keeping an eye on now? Yes, I do, because Zach Moss actually only got 4 touches in the last game. And Singletary, his touches went up a significant amount. So I would pay attention to the running back situation there. And if Singletary is available, possibly consider picking him up this week or next week, because he potentially maybe will start getting more touches in these final games for playoffs. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, that was an interesting story coming out of the Bills. Zach Moss fumbled on one of their first opening drives, and the coach after the game said, yeah, that's why he got 4 touches. You got to hold on to the football. Singletary saw that value. Both those running backs, though, it's been a tough year. They have that wide receiver committee as well. And I do think the Bills will win this game. I've liked the Bills all season. I think they take this one.
I like the Bills too. Unfortunately, though, I think the Steelers are not happy with the way last week turned out. So I think they're going to come back fighting. I got the Steelers winning this one.
Yeah, that should be a good matchup to
Oh,
see.
yeah, for sure. Prime time, 7:20.
Oh,
Sunday
yeah.
Night Football.
Going into the next matchup, we have the Jets at the Seahawks, and the Jets had a crumbling loss. Connor, you called it in the last episode. That was their best chance to win it.
Yeah.
They had the win, and then Derek Carr chucks it deep, and the defense isn't there to cover the Raiders' win. I mean, it almost kind of helps them, though, because they are going to need Trevor Lawrence to get back on track. The Jets, they don't really have any fantasy value. I mean, that's all you can really say. They haven't won a game. Frank Gore did get a concussion. I think he is poised to return this week. But Denzel Mims, one of their young wide receivers, is out, I believe, with personal matters. it's just not a fantasy valued team. There's not a lot to say about the Jets, especially going up against this Seahawks defense who has kind of come around.
Yeah, and Jamison Crowder has really been the only viable starting guy for fantasy all year from the Jets anyway. As for the Seahawks, though, obviously them going up against the Jets, I like pretty much anybody in this matchup. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are definitely both going to have monster games. Russell Wilson, I think he's going to have probably one of his best games of the season. So throw all your Seahawks players in your starting lineup. Jack, I assume you have the Seahawks winning this one as well.
Yeah, I do. And I think the Seahawks defense has kind of come around on the season. And, the Jets offense isn't something that's insanely tough to deal with. Yeah, I got the Seahawks.
Yeah, and honestly, you brought up a good point there. If the Seahawks D are still available and you need a defense for this week, for sure. For sure.
Playoff defense.
It's the only time, really, you ever want to have that defense. But
yeah, I mean, it's so true. When you get to playoffs, you really start to focus on these lower-end guys, kickers, defense. You got to look for the guys who are projected the most. You got to. You just got to play the best guys, best chance to win. Going into the next matchup, we have the Vikings at the Buccaneers. The Vikings have been a middle road team this year. They're 6-6, and Dalvin Cook obviously has been the highlight of their team. Dalvin Cook, you guys know, he's their star. He's their play. Along with that, Justin Jefferson, he is another star player. He's a great rookie. He's a great play. Adam Thielen is a great start. Kirk Cousins isn't probably the best QB option. You probably want to go with someone else. And their defense, Vikings defense, does have a lot of injuries, especially going up against this Buccaneers offense. They should not be played this week. The tight end situation there with Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith Jr., both of them kind of split. It comes down to touchdowns there. If you have a better tight end option, I'd go with that. But if you were to pick one, I'd go with Irv Smith. He seems to have the touchdown upside there. But yeah, no, the Vikings are a middle road team who could make playoffs themselves this season. And they have some good guys, and you know who to play with those big three on their offense.
And for the Buccaneers, when AB got added to the mix, there was a little bit of not really knowing what to expect from the production from all the wide receivers. And I think now we're in a safe enough place where, the big three, Evans, Godwin, and Brown, are viable starters, including Godwin for this week. He had a finger injury prior to Thursday, but he was practicing fine Thursday, so he should be good to go for that. But I think, honestly, Godwin, he's going to get those red zone touches this week, and I think he's going to have maybe one of his better games of the season, there have been very few because he's been out so much this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Buccaneers, we've probably talked about this a little bit, but with the addition of Brady, they are that playoff team. They're going to be in the playoffs. Rojo has been there as well. It's been the battle between him and Fournette kind of turned into the pass-catching option. I like Rojo, and I like the Buccaneers, and that's why I'm picking them to win this game. What about you?
I have the Bucs as well.
Okay, going into the next matchup, we have the Texans at the Bears. The Texans 4-8. And we had some big news come out in the past couple of days. David Johnson has been put on the COVID reserve list, so look for Duke Johnson to be getting those starts. Going against the Bears defense, it may be tough, but especially with Brandon Cooks, who looks to be banged up, and Will Fuller, who's obviously suspended out for the rest of the year. Look for Duke Johnson to have that ground game and some of that pass-catching upside as well. He should have a good week. Deshaun Watson, he doesn't have a ton of targets this week, especially with losing Will Fuller. That was their guy. The Texans have been struggling with the loss of DeAndre Hopkins. They thought they could handle it with Cobb, Brandon Cooks, and Fuller, but now with Fuller out, Brandon Cooks, I believe he's questionable right now. Look for Cobb to be getting those targets. If you really need a flex this week, consider Cobb, but the Bears defense is their strong point. It's going to be tough to get some points on the board there.
As for the Bears, however, Robinson did have a knee injury going into this week, but it seems like during yesterday's practice, he was cleared up on that and he should be good to go for tomorrow. And, the Texans defense has really struggled all around all year long. So look for Robinson and then also on the run game, David Montgomery to have really good games this week. I think they're both probably going to be at least top 15 at both of their positions.
Yeah, I mean, David Montgomery really has turned around. He has looked like a really good fantasy back. If you have him, you should be in a good spot for your fantasy playoffs. I would expect about 20 points from him this week. And I think this matchup is really going to be the battle of the defenses because with the Texans' losses and the Bears' offense never really getting going, I do think I'm going to have the Bears in this one. I think David Montgomery is going to have a huge week and bring them to a victory.
And also with David Montgomery, and I mean, honestly, the whole Bears offense in general, their next couple of matchups after Houston is Minnesota and Jacksonville. So those are both great matchups to for your guys in playoffs. They play Green Bay week 17, so that's iffy. But, these next 2 weeks, you should be in good shape for both of them. And I also
100%.
have the Bears. I also have the Bears winning this one based off they got to get this losing streak taken care of, and I think this week will be the week.
Yeah, good work bringing up those matchups because, David Montgomery, Allen Robinson, going to be great fantasy playoff assets. Going into the next matchup, we have the Cardinals at the Giants. The Cardinals, another team here that's kind of in the wild card spot. And they had those guys, Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kenyon Drake. I've talked about the big three. I like the big three. The Cardinals defense going against the Giants, it could be iffy this week. I wanted to touch on this because the Giants and the Washington football team are going head-to-head for this division now. They're both working insanely hard on offense. I don't know if I trust the Cardinals defense 100% this week, but I do look for their offense to have a spark. But beyond the big three, Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kenyon Drake, I wouldn't really trust anyone else going into this week. But I keep in mind that the Cardinals are young and they are shaping up to maybe go on a playoff run this year.
Oh yeah, Cardinals definitely are going to be a fun team to watch in the future. But for the Giants, Daniel Jones still remains sidelined with that hamstring injury, so Colt McCoy is taking over under center. I feel bad, especially for the wide receivers on this team, because it really looked like Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton especially were starting to sort of emerge more in a sense where you could trust them more, where in the past you really couldn't trust any Giants wide receiver, right? So it was kind of nice to see that from them. But now with Colt McCoy under the helm, I don't think either of these guys have enough chemistry yet to trust them, let alone I think Arizona, they're not the best pass defense, but I think they're going to have enough to get the job done against Colt McCoy. So I have Arizona winning this one.
Yeah, I do too. And I just wanted to add one more thing. If you have Wayne Gallman as the Giants running back.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's who they're going to. He's a must start.
He needs to be started. He is a playoff kind of sleeper. People have slept on Wayne Gallman. With the exit of Saquon Barkley, he has been real good. Going in, and I don't know if I said this, I think the Cardinals will win this. But going into the next matchup, we have the Chiefs at the Dolphins. And the Chiefs, they're the best team in the NFL right now. Look for Patrick Mahomes to have a huge week, Tyreek Hill to have a huge week. But then you get into this running back situation. I know fantasy owners of Clyde Edwards-Helaire are really mad at Andy Reid because last week Clyde Edwards-Helaire was dealing with an illness, so everyone was kind of freaking out who had him. And then Andy Reid activated him, but had him on the sidelines the whole game as a emergency running back. And Le'Veon Bell got the start. Le'Veon Bell did not do very good, and Darrell Williams came in the fourth quarter, and they kind of just gave up on Le'Veon. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire is good to go, I would assume he is going to be getting the bulk of touches, especially with Le'Veon's disappointing week last week. And besides that, the Chiefs, they're just an offensive powerhouse. Travis Kelce, they have all those guys. The Chiefs are going to play great.
And actually, both these teams are having sort of running back issues this week because Myles Gaskin has tested positive for COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, Gaskins is out for this week. And so is one of their backups, Salvin Ahmed, with a shoulder. Yeah. That means the whole backfield is going to be Matt Breida's. So it'll be interesting to see. This is really Matt Breida's first chance. He hasn't done too much this year due to like the sharing of touches. So I'm excited to see what Matt Breida could do. I do not trust him against the Kansas City Chiefs, however, who have a pretty good defense as is. So not this week. If Myles Gaskin is out next week, then potentially we'll see what happens with Breida. They got New England next week, so it's a little more reasonable. However, I do have the Chiefs winning this one over the Dolphins.
Yeah, I do as well. And I just wanted to add on that Matt Breida is there, and then there's also DeAndre Washington. They're getting into these third-string, fourth-string guys that just aren't going to be the powerhouse. If Gaskin's back, like you said, next week, that will be huge for playoffs. But, right now that running back committee is not trustable. Going into the next matchup, we have the Titans at the Jaguars. So Derrick Henry has had some bust weeks. He's a great running back, but he's had some of these weeks where he gets 12 points. And if he's your top running back, I know you're hoping and praying that he goes off this week and drops like a 30-point game on the poor Jaguars defense, which I think the Titans will do. I think they'll have a great game all around. A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, and an interesting guy there, Corey Davis, has also emerged as a great wide receiver. Play him. If you have Corey Davis, play Corey Davis. He has been looking great. Tannehill has been throwing to him. I think Jonnu Smith will return as well. This offense is going to be well-rounded. They're going to be back. They're going to be healthy, and they're going to be looking to torment this Jaguars defense.
Yeah, for the Jaguars, in my opinion, the only person you should be starting is James Robinson. I think with the QB situation, DJ Chark has had a disappointing year. His past 3 games, 9.6, 8.1, and 6.1. Granted, one of those matchups was against Pittsburgh, but still, I don't think he's going to find it with Mike Glennon. I think that we're going to have to look elsewhere for an option in that. But yeah, James Robinson really is the only good thing to talk about this team this year. Yeah. I do not trust the Jaguars at all, and I have them losing this week to the Titans.
Yeah, I have the Titans as well. The Jaguars quarterback situation has really destroyed their season. They're going to have to look back to the draft boards and start over, which sucks because people were excited about Gardner Minshew, but they kind of just gave up on him. And I'm telling you now, Glennon is not hitting any of these wide receivers. That man shouldn't even be in the NFL.
I don't know why they just didn't wait to solve all this either at the end of the season, after the playoffs and everything, or just like preseason, right? I don't know why they just decided to go into this in the middle. Right? They just, I think they could just give Gardner a full season, give him a chance. But
yeah, it makes me so angry because I'm a DJ Chark owner and I like the guy. And when they gave up on Minshew, put in Jake Luton, he was disappointing. And now Glennon, Gardner Minshew is better than Glennon.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that for sure.
I don't know. They gave up on him so quick. I know the Jags aren't good. They're probably now they're definitely getting a new quarterback, but it's just disappointing to see. I love DJ Chark. He's real fast and he's good, but he doesn't have a quarterback who can throw to him. Laviska Shenault as well. He was looking good this year, but
especially
with Glennon,
at the beginning of the year, he put up 11. He put up back-to-back 11-point games. He was doing great, and then
the Jags are a mess. They're going to have to go back to the drawing boards. Yeah, Titans win this one. Going into the next game, we have the Cowboys at the Bengals. And yeah, the Cowboys, along with the Eagles, like I've said, I like to talk about the division a lot because they're all pretty bad. The Washington football team and the Giants look like they're flipping around to have pretty good endings to the season and playoffs. But yeah, no, the Cowboys have been really, really disappointing. Last week, they got taken out of prime time. And Jerry Jones doesn't like to see that. But yeah, no, they don't deserve to be there. They aren't good. Andy Dalton has not been playing good, and he has those wide receiver weapons, but they just can't hold up. Maybe Amari Cooper looks like he's been getting the bulk of the touches, and CeeDee Lamb could be a flex play. But Ezekiel Elliott, again, has just been disappointing. I still consider him a flex, but I mean, if you drafted him up early in the drafts, I know you're disappointed with him and you're really going to need him for playoffs. And also, the Cowboys' defense has not been good. That's also been a factor on why they're 3-9. I really am feeling for the Cowboys, and they are just not a good team.
For the Bengals, there was some hope that Joe Mixon would actually come back this week to play, but I do not think that is the case. So it looks like Giovanni Bernard will resume starting back roles this week, but there is hope that Mixon will return next week, which is good news for Joe Mixon owners. You can get him for most of playoffs. But Bengals, honestly, they fall in the same category as the Jags, that after Burrow went down, I really do not trust anyone on the pass game. So really, Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard are really, like James Robinson, the only bright spots on this football team this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to see. The Cowboys' offense was looking actually pretty good with Dak, and the Bengals' offense was looking good with Burrow. You know, when those guys come in, Andy Dalton, Brandon Allen, they're just not the same, obviously, and that's caused the dip in most of the wide receivers' performances. And I do have the Cowboys winning this, but man, it could go either way.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I forgot to mention, Giovanni Bernard could be a solid flex play because they are playing the Cowboys defense. So
yeah,
I think that the Cowboys will win this as well, but their defense has obviously not been the best all year. So Bernard is a viable starting option, I believe.
Yeah, the next matchup here, we have the Broncos at the Panthers. Melvin Gordon had a pretty good week last week. But going into this week, I don't think I trust him to have as good of a week. I think he'll probably average around 10 points this week, because the Panthers' defense has actually been pretty good and pretty good against the run, and Phillip Lindsay's always there taking away some touches. So I do think Melvin Gordon his value from last week is going to drop a little bit going into the playoffs. That's probably something for you to keep in mind if you have him and if you're looking at your flex options. But besides that, their wide receiver value all year has not been very good. I do like Noah Fant. I think he's been one of the best tight ends this year. So he obviously should be a play. But, Jerry Jeudy and that whole wide receiver committee has just not been the best. That's due to Drew Lock. He should not be played. He has not had a good season. The Broncos are one of these teams, again, that's probably going to miss playoffs and probably have a 10 to 15 top pick, something like that. It's going to be a tough matchup for them going against the Panthers.
Yeah, for the Panthers, McCaffrey, once again, is doubtful for Sunday's game, and I think he will be probably ruled out tomorrow before the games start. So Mike Davis looks like he got one more week left before McCaffrey comes back for playoffs. So Mike Davis owners, you guys should be very excited about that, considering they are playing the Broncos, who have not been good all year. But the Broncos have been somewhat solid on the pass. So I would start Robbie Anderson with caution, even though DJ Moore is going to most likely be out because of COVID-19. It's possible Anderson will receive more targets, but I think the defense for the Broncos are going to be on him more, which is going to make it harder for him to get open and get those long receptions, which he's known for.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Panthers for this. I think their defense has been improving, and I think they have the better offense here.
I have the Panthers as well.
Going into the next matchup, we have the Colts at the Raiders. And the Colts have been good. Another kind of undervalued team this year. Phillip Rivers has actually played really well. T.Y. Hilton has picked it up the couple past weeks. Michael Pittman has been good. And like I said last week, they're starting to turn to Jonathan Taylor more as the young running back. Jonathan Taylor will be getting his touches, and he will be doing good. I expect him to be strong in this week 1 of playoffs. Play Jonathan Taylor. But yeah, all around, this team is good. The only thing iffy about the offense is Trey Burton hasn't been the best at tight end. So if you have him, I may look to other options there. But yeah, no, this Colts team has been good. And, 8-4, they're looking like maybe a dangerous playoff team.
And Josh Jacobs is still questionable with his ankle issue he had. This injury seems pretty like it's been hanging on a bit, so it's been annoying for Josh Jacobs owners, I'm sure. But for the Colts, Jack, like you mentioned, their defense all year has been really solid. So I honestly, besides Jacobs, if he's 100% healthy, I don't really trust anybody here for this matchup just because of the Colts defense and how good they've been at shutting down especially wide receivers all year. Good wide receivers on other teams too. So I would proceed with caution against starting any wide receivers this week for them.
Yeah, and, especially the Raiders struggling with the Jets last week is kind of like a red flag for them. I think the Colts will take care of them.
Yeah, if you're going to have trouble with the Jets defense, definitely going to have trouble with this defense. So I have the Colts as well.
Going into the next matchup, we have some division play here. The Packers at the Lions, and you know who to play on the Packers. Davante Adams has been great this season. I mean, he's like averaging 20-something points a game. He has been great. And you've also seen the emergence of Robert Tonyan in the tight end position. He has been good. Rodgers has been going him and Adams in the passing game. Valdez-Scantling and Lazard have kind of fallen off. And there's also Aaron Jones there who you can play. The Packers defense has been iffy, but going against this Lions team, I think they'll play pretty well, actually. But yeah, no, you know who to play on the Packers. They're another, top division team that's going to probably have a good run in playoffs. Aaron Rodgers looking to get his second ring, and he's got the people around him to do it.
Deandre Swift has an illness right now as of today, Friday. It's really scaring me because it sounds like he's got COVID. I don't know why they just don't come out and say he doesn't have COVID, but they just keep saying illness. So I was able to pick up Adrian Peterson just in case Swift is held out. I'm going to put him in because he has done great as a backup he lit up the Bears and the Vikings the past couple of weeks. So he has been great. I love Adrian Peterson if he is going to obviously have the starting role this week. And also, Marvin Jones Jr., look for him to have a great week against Green Bay because Kenny Golladay, once again, is out. So Marvin Jones is definitely going to get a lot more targets and touches this week. And honestly, I think Detroit's going to bring it to Green Bay. I don't think they're going to win, but I think it might actually be close for a little bit. Maybe not all the way through, but I think they're going to bring it to them, especially early on. So I have Green Bay winning, but I think it'll be a good game to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the Packers like to put up a lot of points against their division rivals, but also sometimes take some points. I'd also like to add on there, TJ Hawkinson should also be 100% played. He is playing great.
He's sort of in that week in, week out start, though.
Yeah. I think the Packers will take it. They're looking like a great team. Going into the next matchup here, we have the Washington football team at the 49ers, and Antonio Gibson is injured. He will be out. I know that is definitely disappointing for Antonio Gibson owners, especially going into playoffs while he was looking like he was really getting going. So that kind of leaves it to the other guy who's been hot on their team, Terry McLaurin. I think he will have a good week. Alex Smith has kind of had this crazy comeback story, and now he's looking to win the division here. But beyond that, the Washington football team, I still don't think they are amazing. Going back to the Gibson thing, that might make J.D. McKissick a replacement play. He's not going to be as strong as Antonio Gibson was, probably a flex option. Logan Thomas, though, in the tight end position, if you need one and he's on your waivers, maybe pick him up for playoffs if you're struggling in that tight end spot. He's been kind of heating up lately, and especially with Gibson not going to be getting any touchdowns this week, obviously. it's going to force Alex Smith to go to some other guys. I think the Washington football team will put up a fight this week.
Yeah, and I just wish Jimmy Garoppolo would get healthy quick because Brandon Ayuk has been so good this year. I would love to see how these two could do when they're both healthy at the same time. Both of them have had their own injury problems all year long. And especially with Deebo Samuel potentially being out, if Garoppolo potentially plays, if not this week, but next week, and he's still out, Ayuk and Garoppolo are going to have some great connections. So I'm excited to see how that prevails. But Washington's defense has been sneaky good this year. Sneaky good. So I'd proceed with caution starting anybody on the 49ers offense right now.
Yeah, the injuries have killed them. And I think the Washington football team's going to win this. After beating the Steelers, that's really going to rejuvenate some of their guys.
Yeah, for sure. I do have Washington football team as all. I feel like the 49ers have been struggling pretty much all year, mostly because of injury. They have not had the best season in terms of luck at all this year, but I have the Washington football team.
Going into the next matchup, we have the Saints at Eagles. If anyone owns Drew Brees, he will not be returning this week. They'll be sticking with Taysom Hill. But he hasn't lost yet, and he's looked pretty good for being that unique style of quarterback that no one's ever really seen before. I do not think he's probably fantasy playable, but maybe against the Eagles he can do something. And again, I've said this every week, Taysom Hill's been starting. Drew Brees would hit guys like Emmanuel Sanders. He'd spread them out. Taysom Hill likes to keep it on the ground and only hit his stars. Michael Thomas will be getting his receptions. Kamara will be getting his ground game. And I wanted to get into Kamara a little bit because he has not had the greatest pass value since Brees has been gone. Obviously, because Taysom Hill isn't that strong of a passer. They've been keeping him on the ground. Latavius Murray looked like he might be getting the bulk of touches a couple weeks back, but now his production has kind of dipped. They've gone back to Kamara. He had 16 attempts last week. He got his touchdown. Kamara should have a pretty similar week. I'd look to see him get 15, 16 points. But, losing that pass catching, you guys are going to need that back when Brees comes back next week. That will be huge if you have Kamara in playoffs. Oh, and one more thing to keep in mind. The Saints defense has been great since about week 3, week 4, somewhere around there. They have been dominant, especially against this Eagles team. I think they'll be dominant.
And we have big news coming out of Philly this week. Jalen Hurts will be the starter this week for the Eagles going up against New Orleans, which is big news. Carson Wentz is heading to the backup role, and we'll see what Jalen Hurts can do with this offense. I personally think this should have happened back in week 11 maybe or something, because Wentz has not been getting it done. He hasn't been getting it done all year long. Good for Philly benching him. However, they are going up against a very tough New Orleans defense, and I'm all for giving Jalen Hurts a chance. I really am, but I do not think he should be in your lineups for this week. We also have some more news coming out of Philly as well. Zach Ertz came back from injury last week, and he basically picked up from where he left off, only putting up 4 points. It was against Green Bay, but he's not really capitalizing on his production this year. Really just a disappointing year for Zach Ertz. If you're a Zach Ertz owner, I feel bad for you. I almost was a Zach Ertz owner. Luckily, I traded him away the week before he got injured for TJ Hawkinson. I really scammed that guy good there in that trade. But, I really don't love anybody in the Eagles offense this week, and I have New Orleans winning this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's funny that you bring up Jalen Hurts should have been getting the start a couple of weeks back, because I completely agree. Now they have given up on Wentz. It will be interesting to see where he ends up in the offseason. But, with the Eagles being in this situation and the Saints being hot, even with Taysom Hill, he's been good. I think the Saints win this one. Going into the next matchup here, we have the Falcons at the Chargers, and Julio Jones is out this week. If you have Julio Jones, that is going to be tough for you. But with that being said, if you have Calvin Ridley, look for him to have an explosive week because Matt Ryan's going to be targeting him. Hayden Hurst, the tight end, also struggled last week, but with Julio Jones being out, Matt Ryan's going to look to him a lot more. Todd Gurley has kind of been iffy, and he's kind of battled some injuries. He hasn't been the best. If you need him, he's there, but maybe see if you have someone else that's preferable. But no, the Falcons, just the bad start really just killed their season. They've kind of had some wins, but no, yeah, the Falcons have just kind of been an unknown team this year and another team that needs to get some new guys in.
Yeah, and the Chargers, for them, Austin Eckler recently came off his injury 2 weeks ago now. He came off and he was great, putting up 20 points, I believe. Then last week against New England, he only had 4 points. So it'll be interesting to see what he'll do against the Falcons, who obviously have not been too good all year. So you guys should not be too worried about Austin Eckler. I have my full confidence in him. And I'm also very excited for Hunter Henry this week. He came off of a not so good performance last week, only putting up one single point. So I think he's going to get back on track this week and get those red zone touches, hopefully find the end zone at least once this upcoming Sunday. I do.
Yeah,
sorry. Oh, you can go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add on, if you watched last week's podcast, we touched on how Bill Belichick is great with rookie quarterbacks and knowing how to game plan them, how to stop them. I mean, that showed. Bill Belichick, the greatest coach, greatest defensive-minded coach, he put Herbert in his place, let's say. And I would just want to add on, I think Herbert will have a bounce-back week. This Falcons secondary is terrible. Just wanted to add that in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Keenan Allen obviously must start, but it's sort of common sense. But, yes, I have the Chargers winning this one.
Yeah, and I do have the Chargers. I think Herbert's going to bounce back strong. And I've heard a lot of noise about Mike Williams maybe having a big week, something along those lines. I'm not really on that train. I don't think Mike Williams is going to be that guy that people are making him out to be because Austin Eckler is now involved in the pass game again, and Keenan Allen, him and Herbert have been great. But going into the last matchup, the Monday night game, the Ravens at the Browns. Last week, Lamar Jackson owners were happy to see him get a pretty sure 40-yard rushing touchdown, getting him back in the ground game, and hitting Marquise Brown, who has kind of had a disappointing season. But no, he got a touchdown, and he's kind of back on track. More news there. Look for Mark Andrews to come back. Be strong at tight end. He'll be a great play. The running back situation, though, there. I mean, it seems like there's a running back situation in almost every team. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards have kind of overtaken the old guy now, Mark Ingram. Like I said last week, the young guys will eventually take over the old guys. And it looks like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards have done that. Look for J.K. Dobbins to have the big week here. Gus Edwards is kind of the buff back. He gets those tough third and one touches. J.K. Dobbins, that is agility back. He's in the pass game, and he's on the ground. He's fast. Look for J.K. Dobbins to be the big running back in this matchup.
For the Browns, like I said all year, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt have just been great this year on the dual back threat. They are the best dual back team in the league. The Browns are for sure, because both of them usually most weeks are must starts, and I think the same thing goes for this week as well. Nick Chubb did, however, back in week 2 only put up 6 points against Baltimore, but in my opinion, that was a different Baltimore team when they still had more of what they carried on from the year previous. So I think that Chubb's going to come back better this week, make up for his miss in week 2.
And I just wanted to add on something here to the Ravens side. I have no trust in the Ravens defense this week because the Browns have been surprisingly good. Like I said last week, no one really believes they're good. No, the Browns have been sneaky good. But I do have the Browns winning this, but it's going to be a tight Monday night game. Should be a good one to watch. What's your take on
Well, personally, I think this is more just because of the team's image and the team's past. But the Browns, I just feel like have a history folding under pressure, especially in primetime situations. So I have the Ravens winning this one.
Okay.
And that is it, guys, for all the matchups this week. We hope you guys enjoyed. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the last video. Me and Jack love making these weekly fantasy videos. We hope we can continue doing that for the rest of playoffs. We hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you in the next one.
Good luck in playoffs.